it's a real pleasure to be invited to open this conference. It's always a pleasure to engage and to see engaging conversations and dialogue around difficult issues and important issues. And that's been the tradition of the Centre in its 10 years or so. That it's provoked, it's inspired, it's provided platform and opportunity. You're going to forgive me, I only have 10 minutes, and there's a few things that I wanted to say, and I didn't want to miss some of the points. So, very unusual for me, I'm going to read a few comments, but these are available afterwards if anyone wants. So, opening a conference on sovereignty and rethinking sovereignty, thinking about it and rethinking, reminded me of the moment that we're in. We're in a moment of anniversaries this month, this year. And I think of Ukraine, I think of Iraq, I think also of Northern Ireland. They're all related to sovereignty, and I wanted you to think about them as I unfold a little. So these past 399 days, and counting, are particularly painful and important, because during those 399 days, and counting, we've lived each and every day with violent conflicts and crimes of war in Europe, with an illegal and immoral attack on the lives of ordinary people just like you and I, an existential assault on basic securities, on plans and aspirations, on relationships and on communities. The invasion of Ukraine by Russia is an assault on the idea of sovereignty and the reality of sovereignty, and on the international, indeed universal rules that should govern and protect. So I really welcome this conference as a challenging and provoking conversation, and charge you to have that in the next couple of days. I congratulate the organisers for raising this issue and keeping it strong in our thinking. But lest we forget, there are other reminders, other anniversaries. Among too many are the 20 years since the invasion of Iraq, of Saddam Hussein's Iraq, by the US and the UK and their allies. And 25 years since the agreements that, for the most part, removed everyday violence from the Troubles in Ireland. This year, 2013, is also the 10th anniversary of our centre, the Centre for Trust, Peace and Social Relations. It was in 2013 that we were invited to conceptualise, to develop and design and to propose the centre that you now live and see, both as an idea and as an institution. 10 years during which we've grown in size and stature, becoming a leader before we really got used to being a follower. The centre has grown in terms of the number of staff, the number of graduates, the number of research challenges and projects within its portfolio. It's moved at an unprecedented pace, transforming from a heavily subsidised social science research centre to one which this year, in its 10th year, will contribute to the resources of Coventry University. Recognition of the centre's growth and the work was by the UK government's measures during its Research Excellence Framework exercise in 2021, saw us move Coventry's scholarship in politics and international relations from being as a 4th quartile in UK higher education, in research impact, research environment and research power. 4th quartile out of the 150 or so institutions in the UK, to where we are now in the 1st quartile in its 10-year journey. So we're now in the top quarter of all universities in this area of work. The strong and eclectic and impactful research programme emphasises synergies across the department through the research theme clusters, its global reach and the partnerships through our heralded seminar series. When we have them, they're amazing. The Rising Global Peace Forum, and through the active engagement globally in challenged places, where I often say, places where language divides people, where history has dealt really unfair hands, and where human insecurities, unfortunately, flourish. Those are the places where we're to be seen, where we do our thinking. Places where languages divide people, where history has dealt this really unfair hand, and where human securities flourish. So we're a centre for scholarship that's concerned about research to inform keeping people safe, as much as we are in helping to create the conditions for peaceful relationships. This is a distinctiveness about the centre, keeping people safe and creating the conditions for peaceful relations. The work in protective security has underlined the core understanding about trusted places and about a real contribution to changing the quality of lives of people that the centre makes through its research. The centre has significant local engagement as well within the direct community in Coventry and the West Midlands, working, as you know, on migration, on local jobs and skills, and on the divisions between faiths and the challenge of living together in this complex and multifaceted world. In many ways, it has a real concern about unfairness, a defining characteristic of our work, which drives much of the work and passions, all of which has brought colleagues together to explore common themes and issues throughout our work. I'm continually reminded, now in a more detached role, of how important are the subjects and issues that lie at the core of the centre's work. Its disciplines and subjects are among the most relevant to the challenges that we face in the world today. Issues around secure and safe communities, inequality, as I've said, the uneven impacts of globalization, a concern to better understand violent conflict and transitions to peace, the power and politics of international organizations, the purpose and effectiveness of aid, social movements, non-state actors and civil society, informal labour issues and climate change, and matters of community security. There's a list that's incredibly significant and important, and it's simply at the lexicon of this centre's activities. And the question of nation-state, of sovereignty, as a concept and as a driving definer, lies at the centre of our work. These discussions have been at the heart of our teaching, the heart of our research and our engagement and collaboration with global networks and scholars since establishment, and all within a UK that we're all familiar with, that's appearing redefined at this moment in our history. We see as a nation to be erecting barriers and withdrawing bridges, with significant changes in national policy towards Europe, within global labour markets and the global movement of people for whatever reason. Discussions about new restrictions on students and also academics coming to UK universities, whether to study or just to visit and share insights. The current government's refusal to engage with non-British experts in the framing of policy within the national policy frame that appears to recognise only a world enthralled by those who dissemble the obscure and reject the notion of evidence and data. What we're doing and what we will continue to do as the Centre for Trust, Peace and Social Relations at this time and in the future has perhaps never been more important. And these conferences and conversations are important reminders of those ideas and those values that draw on the knowledge and research of world-leading scholars, encouraging dialogue, debate and commitment that our scholarship must remain at the heart of what we do. Not just now, but for the next 10 and 25 years. It's both who we are and who we know that matter. So let me finish by bringing to you some words from good friends of mine, two good friends. I call them often companions in anxiety because they share the anxieties to which I've referred in passing. But they're people who don't just worry about the things that we've referred to, but bring ideas and insights to us all. And I challenge you over this couple of days, worry about the state of sovereignty, rethink it, reimagine it, but don't end there. Begin to think and inspire new approaches or new rigors that must take us. Will Hutton, I met in 2011 first, and I've followed his interest in his journalism very much. And he wrote a piece in The Observer last Sunday, which places emphasis on the challenges we embed in our rush for sovereignty or for taking back control, which became a familiar call to you over the last 3 or 4 years. He talks about how we search for a back to normal, a re-establishment of control and sovereignty, although he doesn't use the word, when actually normal is not a very good place at all. And he, as I, does not apologise sometimes in our work for being political. So let me read. Tory England, he says, its riches, its schools, its social influence, its press, the inequalities over which it presides, its stranglehold over what is considered political common sense, remains as powerful now as it was under Prime Minister Lord Salisbury in 1900. As an exercise in political futility, there's little to match it. This is a sovereignty we worry about, that we want to treasure and preserve and capture. And he goes on to say, positively, for Britain does have a great progressive tradition, independent of socialism, largely rooted in the best of new liberalism, common law, and our early embrace of democracy. Moreover, our core values, fairness, tolerance, kindness, openness, admiration for those who dare, championing the underdog, are also fundamentally progressive. So we're in a state, but he sees the potential, the core progressiveness that most of us value. We're in gloomy times. Why is it that we still must remain positive, remain active in our scholarship, and remain progressive and aspirational? And why must we always be thoughtful and vigilant? My good colleague Emma Skye, who I've now worked with closely with my position at Yale University, she wrote recently in the New Statesman, and I share this with you as well. She captured it much better than I can. She describes how she responds to her students when they say, why do you stay so positive and resilient when all this is going on? I tell them, she says, about the Cold War era, when I came of age. She's younger than me, but probably older than most of you. Of the Berlin Wall coming down in 1989. Of President George Bush declaring a new world order at the end of the Cold War. Of the launch of the Middle East peace process she and I were both engaged in. Of the end of apartheid, the Good Friday Agreement, which we're celebrating this year. I tell them about the period of EU enlargement and NATO expansion, the growth of the United Nations, the new international norm, responsibility to protect our fellow global citizens, and of Tony Blair's championing Cool Britannia and New Labour's ethical foreign policy. This was a time when I was in my formative part of my life and career. Very positive things were happening. But Emma, as I, raised in this positive, formative era, there's always a but. She then goes on to say that she also needs to tell her students about the 9/11 attacks, about how fear, power, and hubris, but also ideology and delusion, led to the invasion of Iraq in 2003, and how the war ended the unipolar order that we had in the world. So I welcome very much this conference, for all those reasons and many more. What a programme of papers we have. I've seen all the abstracts. Congratulations to collecting such ideas and inspiration. And please keep coming throughout the year when we have other seminars of this kind. It's good to see all the seats filled, and those of you online as well. I'm going to leave you a period of self-indulgence, if you like. Good leaders, you know, do one of three things, or all of them if they're good. I'm no longer a leader, but I work a lot on leadership in my scholarship. Leaders direct, and I can tell you how to behave over the next couple of days. Leaders enable, we can make it possible, we can stimulate you to think this and that and the other. And leaders inspire. And I leave you with three quotes that I'm using currently in my research.
Apologies for that.
So you can take them as you wish. We'll read them, and they're certainly available in writing. And I want you to reflect on them over the next couple of days. So I do more than just open you. I'm setting your agenda. Good ideas aren't real until you're willing to do something, some little thing, to act on them. Secondly, if democratic procedures start to seem shambolic, then democratic ideas will seem questionable as well. So like many of you, I sat and watched the performance of our former Prime Ministers in our democratic processes of accountability. When we begin to look shambolic in our democracies, the system itself that protects our sovereignty, the world order that we choose to protect us, also becomes vulnerable. And finally, in reference to the sovereignty issues around Brexit, one big argument was that we had to overthrow this oppressive, non-democratic European journey that was dominating our thinking. When you overthrow an imaginary impression, says this quote, you get an imaginary freedom. And much of the debate for me in the current literature on sovereignty centres on that last one. Let's be very clear and focused. There is an enormous difference to the threat to sovereignty of an illegal invasion by an autocrat Putin in Ukraine to our anxiety about our sovereignty withdrawing from the European community. So a few opening remarks. Enjoy the conference, and thank you so much for this opportunity to set you off on your journey.